How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Bert and Fonx. I'm Bert.
And I am Fonx.
Bert and Fonx.
And today we're talking about a special trip that I just took for my 30th birthday, which was a while ago by the time that you're listening to it, but we thought we'd talk about it today because we haven't actually gotten to talk in depth about it yet, and thought this would be a great opportunity to talk about it. So what I wound up doing was I went to Scotland. And I went to Scotland for 3 weeks. 3 solid weeks. And it was amazing.
Nice trip.
Oh my God, it was a nice trip.
I bet, yeah.
I went through all my PTO at work, but it was totally worth it to do this trip.
Fuck yeah.
Right, exactly.
So you just recently turned 30, and I just recently turned 55, which is my life's goal.
Yeah.
Which is now I finally qualify for the senior discount at Denny's. And I mean,
get them discounts, boy.
Yeah, I just get sick of, you know how many generations I've heard already, like, I'm old, I don't know any bands, you know. And if you're lucky, you're going to spend most of your life being old, so, you know, get fucking used to it.
True,
okay?
True.
So, happy birthday, dude.
Happy birthday to you.
I'm making it on your 3rd decade.
Thanks.
And if you guys want, like, half price breakfast sausage at Denny's, I could probably get you comp.
Man, I don't even do the breakfast sausage at Denny's. You know what I do at Denny's?
It's greasy shit.
I do the exact same order every time I go to Denny's. You know what I do? I go there and I get the buffalo chicken fingers and the mozzarella sticks. I've been doing that since I was like 10 years old.
My arteries are going like this as I hear them go.
I've been doing that since I was 10.
I was raised in Germany, so I like sausage, which is a killer. Don't like sausage. It's bad for you any angle you look at it. Okay, it's MSG.
Nah, sausage is fine. Don't listen to him. It's fine.
Dude, it's safe. The one at Denny's, you can just squeeze it, and like a drop of grease that you could just lubricate your rifle with comes out. I personally
lubricate your rifle. That's so specific. Your rifle?
Keys Cafe or your... Keys Cafe, on the other hand, here if you're in the Twin Cities or nearby, is a great location where they make their own Italian sausage.
That's also true. Good. That's true.
Also a killer, but not so much of a killer as Denny's. But anyway, you guys want to come with me to have hash browns and eggs at Denny's and bacon?
Man, we might be doing that after this. I don't know.
Probably will, in fact. But sorry, I
No, it's fine. But yeah, so I thought this would be a great opportunity to talk about that trip at length and actually tell you about it. So what I wound up doing is going there for 3 weeks. I went there without a plan, really. The only thing I had was tickets there and back, and I knew that I had rented a car for the entire time I was there.
Tickets? I'm sorry.
Plane tickets. So I had plane tickets to get there and a plane ticket to get back.
Right.
3 weeks later.
Yeah. And
I had a rental car the whole time, and that was it.
Nice. By the way, I've seen some of the pictures. We're going to put them here, right?
We'll show some.
Yeah, because they're gorgeous. So
cool. I also have some video that we can also insert, just kind of like chop it up. But yeah.
Fun.
Oh my gosh. So I got to tell you that I was absolutely terrified to go and do this trip for a couple reasons. One, it wasn't my first time out of country by any means, but it was my first time out of country by myself. And certainly without a plan.
What about Sweden?
Well, Sweden, I went there to meet up with people.
But
Scotland, I went alone, but I'm still meeting. Like the day I got there, I was with people I knew the whole time.
Okay.
Whereas in Scotland, I didn't know anybody. I just went.
Nice.
And that was the best part. Like it was terrifying, but it was liberating and it was awesome.
Yeah.
To have this experience of just going.
There's a thing about traveling alone.
There is.
It's very therapeutic.
Yeah, but I would say, like, the best part about it all was going there without the plan. And that like, it was just, every day I just got to do whatever the hell I wanted to. And it was awesome. It was really hard to come home because of that. Like, coming home, like, I have my plan, I have my routine, I go to work, I do this, I do that, whatever. But there, it was like, wake up, and it's like, what the fuck do I want to do today? I don't know. Let's take a look at a map and see where I want to go. And that was it. That was how the whole trip went, like how I did every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing. Oh my gosh. So basically the whole thing I did was every night before I would go to bed, I'd look at a map and go, okay, where do I want to go tomorrow? And I would find a point on the map and go, okay, that's where I want to land tomorrow. So what's between here and there that I could check out? And it would be like a 3-hour drive to get there, but it'd
That
be
is
like,
beautiful.
all right, so I can go here, I can look at this thing, I can go here, I can look at this thing, and then it'll drive for an hour and a half. I'll take a potty break, I'll eat lunch somewhere, and then I'll go check out that thing.
How cool. Yeah.
It was awesome. I'll talk in a little bit about some of the stuff that I saw there, but just like one thing I noticed right off the bat with Scotland from getting off the plane and everything is that everyone there is just so damn nice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was almost unsettling to have people be nice to you all the time.
Okay, so let me stop you right there. 'Cause
Yeah.
That begs the question. We are living, you and I are residents, longtime residents of a place known as Minnesota Nice.
Oh,
So define the difference.
Minnesota nice isn't nice, my man.
Cool. Explain that, please. Explain the differences. Let's delve into
Anyone from Minnesota who thinks of Minnesota nice, like, there's two types of Minnesota nice. There's the Minnesota nice where it's like the older people who, like your grandmothers and everything, and they're very welcoming. They'll bring you into their home and bake cookies, and they'll ask questions about you and try and figure out your life, and that feels very nice. It feels very good.
Mhm.
The real Minnesota nice is passive aggressiveness, where it's people upset with you, but they do it in a really nice way so that they don't actually let you know they're upset, or at least they think they're not doing it. But anyone that doesn't grow up in Minnesota totally knows what's going on.
Yeah, I look forward to the comment section of this.
Disagree with me. Fight me. Change my mind.
Yes. So I not being a native Minnesota, I agree in both, but I also must say that there is a niceness in Minnesota culture that permeates everything. So, and I kind
That
of,
is true.
I think I know what you mean, but I would like you to explain it because I think you can. I think it's an interesting thing to delve into. What was in the nicety was something that you welcomed that was strange to you, that was not useful.
So the biggest disparity between what I experience here at home, and especially in Minnesota, versus, and I don't even think it's Minnesota, I think it's just an American thing, versus going there and saying, the Scottish people. Because here in America, you walk up to a stranger and instantly people have they've already formed an expectation of you. And depending on who you just walk up and ask, you'll get different responses. Because some people look at you and they go like, you're no threat, whatever. Yeah, look, what's up? What's going on? And some people are genuinely nice. But it's such a mixed bag here because there are some people I could go up and talk to and they would just completely ignore me, assuming I wanted something from them. Other people would get aggressive at me and go, why are you approaching me? What's up? What do you want? What's up? Mm-hmm. And in Scotland, I got zero of that. It was only nice responses. I could go up to literally anyone, and say, hey, I'm not from around here. I'm a little lost. Could you help me find this location? Be like, no problem. It's just over there. Or they'd be like, I'm sorry, I actually don't know, but that person over there might because they run X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. And it was just something that was uncommon to the degree that I saw it there. That's uncommon here. You know what I mean?
Yep. Would you say, and this is a real random question, I have no agenda here. Would you say that was because you had a foreign accent and maybe that made people want to be more helpful? Or would you say that was a clearly, explicitly just overall demeanor that everybody had?
I think it's just the overall demeanor of it. I mean, there was one thing that I saw even in Glasgow, because I heard a lot of people, when I was going about my trip and people would ask me, oh, what are you doing in Scotland? I would tell them, and they're like, holy crap, you're seeing more of Scotland than I have, and I have lived here my entire life, which I thought was interesting, too.
I think that's always true with tourism.
It is, but Scotland's also, a small enough place. It's
I'm from Spain. It's smaller than Texas.
True.
There's tons of places in Spain that I've only heard of that I would love to go visit, Yeah. I've lived here 20 years. I've never been to Boundary Waters. I'd love to.
You know what? I guess that's also true.
So there's a relativity there. When you're traveling, remember you have that
You have the freedom
vantage
to do so.
point. Yeah, the vantage point of the freedom of the traveler, and you're like,
right.
Well, you have it right there. What are you waiting for? And hey, they have to go back to work in 5 minutes, and maybe they can't go.
Well, and that's something I had to keep reminding myself of too while I was there, because I kept thinking man, this would be a great place to move. I could see myself staying here, and then I went, wait. I'm only thinking this because I'm in vacation brain.
If I were independently wealthy. Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's because I can get up and do whatever I want every day right now. If I had to actually keep up a routine the whole time and go do a 9 to 5, and then I'm well, maybe I've got time on the weekend, but do I want to spend 3 hours, 7 hours driving out to this place to spend a day there and then come back? No.
You get used to some things, like now you're saying that, now that you're actually putting an example and you're painting a picture, you wouldn't necessarily have to be driving for 2 hours. You could be in the train reading a book that you've always wanted to read. I mean, there's different things.
I guess that's true. It depends on the type of travel. Yeah.
But the lifestyle would change in very enriching ways in some ways. The only thing is you do miss the other stuff you become accustomed to that is no longer there.
Right. But, yeah, so anyway, that was just something I thought was very interesting overall with all of that. I think, honestly, though, the best part about the trip that I took, the people were great, the places I saw were great, but the reason I had so much flexibility is because I rented a car.
Okay.
And renting a car, it really wasn't that much, surprisingly.
No,
it was far less than I thought it was going to be.
I travel a lot to Europe, so yeah, I know that.
Because I was thinking, rental car for 3 weeks, dang, how much is that going to be? Very affordable.
Actually, the longer you stretch it out, the more affordable it becomes.
Is that true?
Yeah, because it's like, selling bulk.
I guess that's true,
almost.
Yeah.
The only thing is, what I do know is that after a month, it resets.
Oh, really?
So you can't do it, at least in Spain, you can't do it more than a month. But the good thing about wanting to do it more is that now the agency, especially if you're dealing with an agency, if you're not dealing with a website, the agency wants your business. So now they're like, don't worry, I'll make it really painless.
Right.
Just give us a call and I'll just switch over the dates. So now you have a rapport going. If you can build that up, you can get a good deal.
That's true.
So,
but yeah, honestly, the most expensive part, or I should say the most expensive part that would have happened with renting a car was, so it's day one. I've been traveling for 12 hours or so, with the flights and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm tired.
Right.
And I get there and I'm like, okay, my first destination, the only thing I knew, I figured out on the plane was the first destination I have is 3 hours away from Glasgow where I landed. I'm just going to pick up my rental car and go. I didn't really think about it. So I get there, I'm tired,
yeah, the first thing you do
I'm
is
feeling ragged.
You go to a place, you eat, you have a couple of beers,
Well, I didn't do that.
And you stay for a couple of nights wherever you are, and then you'll get your energy.
Oh, I didn't want to spend a couple of nights wherever I was the first night.
That's very...
I wanted to get up and go. I was excited to explore.
Right.
But that was the problem. It was because I got there after 12 hours of travel. I was exhausted. I picked up the car, forgot. I didn't forget while I was there, but as soon as I got there, I remembered, oh yeah, they drive on the opposite side of the road from what I'm used to. So I have to reverse everything in my head. So that honestly took me about
I've never
a couple, 4 or 5 days to get used to.
Well, that's the thing. It's because if it takes you that much, you can't space out for 1 single second.
Oh, no.
Because you have the wrong side of the car on the wrong side of the road.
Right.
So that's it. That, honestly, I've never tried that. That really scares me.
Right.
Remind me later if we have time to tell you a really funny story about that.
Okay.
About driving on the other side of the road. It's kind of funny.
But after trying to get used to that and being tired and exhausted and terrified, I had to drive 3 hours out to get to the next destination that I wanted to stay at that night.
Mm-hmm.
That was a bad idea because while I was driving, not realizing that they're normal on a little 2-lane highway, so one going one direction and one going the other direction, little 2 lanes, is 70 miles an hour, going over these tight turns, bumpy roads, narrow streets and everything.
Which people know how to navigate, except you.
Yes.
Right.
Because I'm the foreigner.
Right. And everybody's just cruising through it, and you're white-knuckled.
Well, white-knuckled, I'm when I want to keep up with traffic, so I'm not pissing off the people behind me, because it's only 2 lanes. They can't get around me easily.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll split up, and they can go around if there's no traffic.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be that guy. You know what I mean?
Truth is, there are those guys. I mean, there might be a grandma. People are not that.
I understand, but I didn't want to be that person.
Gotcha.
And because of that, I kind of hit a pothole where the road was crumbling, and I might have gotten a flat tire on the first day I was there.
Oh, dude! Oh, that's awesome. And you're still tired from the trip, and you get a flat.
Well, so it wasn't an Insta flat.
On a cliff?
What happened was that the tire dipped down and scraped against the road because the road was like crumbling and falling off, and it's a narrow, like they're all narrow roads over there. And it scraped the inner wall of the tire. So when I got out and I looked at it, I was like, tire looks fine. Because it was on the inside, on the back of it, so I couldn't see it.
Pressure.
Started losing pressure, and I was like, oh, well, the tire pressure light came on, so like that could be because I jostled it or something. Like I was coming up with excuses.
Yeah. And
I went, and I got to where I was going, and I was like, all right, I'm going to park the car. Now I can relax. Now I'm going to go out, have dinner, have a drink or two, and I'll go walking around, and then I'll come back to the car, and I'll take it to the place where I'm sleeping tonight. So I did that, went out, got food, got drinks. I was like, man, this little town is great. So I was in Fort William in Scotland. I was just walking around the town center and checking places. I was like, this is great. First day in Scotland. Everything's all bright and fresh. The people are so nice. Like, I probably look like shit, and they're still like, oh, no problem. And they're being very respectful. And then I go back to my car, and I'm like, does it look like it's leaning? And I walk over to the side, and it's just on the rim. Tire completely flat. And I'm like,
what time is it at this point?
It's like 8 p.m.
How are you with jet lag?
I was dead tired.
Right.
I was thinking I was just going to get the car, go to the place where I was sleeping, and just check out.
It's 8 p.m. over there. Your body feels like it's, what, 2 a.m.?
It's a 6-hour difference. So...
just add 6, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's 8 p.m.
Yeah, so it's 2 a.m. there. Or my body feels like it's 2 a.m.
Right. After traveling, too.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. So,
holy cow.
With all of that, then I managed to drive the car with the dead tire over to a gas station, filled the tire full of air, and was like, you know what? I'll figure it out in the morning. So I filled it completely full of air. It got me to where I needed to go. I fell asleep, and then I woke up the next morning, and I called Avis and was like, hey, what do I do about this? They were like, oh, no problem. We got this covered. All you got to do is call this person who works for this agency, and they'll do it for you.
And now you're arrested.
Now I'm arrested.
So that's different.
But that was like the big hassle day one. Like day two, I took care of that, and the rest of it was smooth sailing. I never had another issue with the car or driving on the wrong side of the road or anything like that. I was like, nice. Got the worst out of the way day one. All right, now we can just do the rest of the trip.
That's what I call a good start.
That's true. That's true. But I was so glad that I did it simply because I could just stop wherever. So it wasn't like I was taking a tour bus because these are the same locations, some of them, that you could take tour buses to. Mm-hmm. But driving my own car, if there was something along the way where I was like, oh man, that just looks like a little pull off on the road, but there's a path that goes away from the pull off, like, what does that path go to? It goes up into those mountains. I want to see that. Mm-hmm. So I could just stop off anywhere and do that.
That's really interesting because my sister just was there in Spain. And we've been going to Spain, as you know, for decades. She lives in the States too. She was there in Spain for a month, and this is the first time that she did not rent a car. Mm-hmm. And the commentary was like, I feel so liberated.
Really?
So that's awesome. I guess it just depends on what the agenda is, and because you've explained it really well. I mean, you're traveling around, you're exploring, so the car comes in really handy.
Right.
She's going there with her kids, with her whole family.
With a purpose.
She wants to be, she can take public transportation and everything, just be relaxed and be with the children and not be in the car with the children yapping in traffic in Madrid.
Yeah.
Which is...
And I guess that is also the big difference.
Postal-inducing traffic.
I loved driving in Scotland. Loved it. Everywhere I went. It was just... And probably because it was technically my second time, but the first time I had spent like a couple days and that was it. This time it was 3 weeks, and everywhere I would drive, it's just these gorgeous sceneries.
It is beautiful.
Like, it's just a beautiful countryside, and it was just constantly like oohing and awing at everything I was driving through. And even though sometimes you're driving down these streets, in fact, what scared me the first at most, but then became my favorite thing to do after I experienced for the first time, were these they're just one lane streets.
Okay.
And you can have two cars going different directions coming at each other on the same street, and they have little tiny pull off areas where you just kind of like nudge over and just enough to let the other car pass. Mm-hmm. And this is a very common thing throughout Scotland, like in a lot of like the areas that aren't as populated.
I'd say in Europe.
Okay, so just in Europe.
Yeah.
It was my first time really. It's technically my second time driving Is Iceland a European country?
I don't know, man.
Or is it separated?
I think
Because I drove in Iceland.
I think it's out of the Union.
Okay. So, regardless, I had driven in Iceland, and there was a little bit of that, but not nearly as much because the entire population of Iceland is less than the population of the city of Minneapolis.
Also, Iceland doesn't have urbanization that goes as far back as other parts in Europe where these are like cart horse.
Right.
Like horse carts.
Like that's what the original use of this was.
So there's this town in Spain that I go to a lot when I'm in Spain. It's a small little town near Madrid. And it has one main street that changes direction with a stoplight. So you actually get there, and it's the wrong direction. You see these cars coming. You have to be stopped. You see these cars coming.
Yeah.
And also those cars stop, and the stoplight opens for you. So now you go in that direction while the other oncoming traffic, they're on the nuts, like you just said, like on the side. Yep. So you just come past them, and then it changes direction again. So they only have room for one car, and it's the main road of the town. So
there was a bunch of places like that in Scotland too.
Yeah,
but it was more like bridges going over things and everything.
Right. Yeah.
And these are also small cars typically. Like you don't see trucks taking these roads.
Yeah. Well, you could not take
like a semi or
car. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just not practical.
Exactly. God, it was wild. But that became my favorite thing because those roads were so remote. And like I got comfortable driving 60 miles an hour down this little farm road, just taking in the scenery and then slowing down and stopping when I needed to let people pass. And the best part is that literally every single time, you would pull off and somebody would pass, or they would pull off and you would pass them, there's always a wave. Every single time. Yeah. I would never get that here.
Well, life is too short not to be civil in close quarters.
I know, but people are just like, I see you, I acknowledge you, like either thank you for pulling over or I appreciate you slowing down and letting me do this. Like, it was just so nice. So nice. Another aspect of this trip that I really wanted to make sure that I did is that even though I was going there on my own, and I think part of that was just because I didn't want to try and coordinate with people to like meet up and set times and do all this stuff. Like I just wanted to go and be able to do whatever, right? But I did, however, reach out to a bunch of my friends and say, hey, I'm going to Scotland during these times. And if you happen to have the means and can get there, let me know when you arrive and we can meet up and do stuff. And I opened it up like that. And I was actually surprised that I got like 4 friends of mine to actually say, hey, we'll meet you there. It was about halfway through my trip where I actually had 2 couple friends of mine, like 2 couples of friends, meet up on the same day. So I had one couple coming from Sweden who live in Sweden right now. And they came to meet me. And I had another couple who were actually from here. They just happened to be on a trip on a cruise. And I think it was with National Geographic. So it's one of their like Arctic Explorer ones, but it was around the northern Arctic. And so they were just coming down off a trip from Greenland.
Nice.
And going around like the northern Arctic Circle.
Yeah.
So coming down off of that. And they flew into Scotland after that to meet up with me. And we all kind of hung out for a few days.
That's awesome.
Which was really, really awesome. Like I didn't actually think anyone would take me up on the offer when I was like, hey, I'm going to be in Scotland for 3 weeks. If you can make it there during that time, let's hang out.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Because I bet it's a very different bonding experience that you have with a friend if you have it.
Oh, like in a different place.
In a completely different country.
Oh, yeah. More so when it's like
bonding thing also there. Right?
Right. And it's not like me going to Sweden and meeting up with those friends because they know Sweden. They're from Sweden. Well, one of them's from Sweden and the other one moved there to be with him. But the fact that they are there all the time now, like they just know Sweden. And so it's not the same as everyone being on the same page of we don't know where anything is. Let's figure it out. Right. And that was the awesome part where it's like, what do we want to do today? I don't know where anything is. Me either. All right, let's do some let's ask around. Let's do some research. Let's find some places to go. And especially because one of them was she started her 3rd trimester of pregnancy with her 2nd child while she was there.
Wow.
Another one of my friends has pretty severe dietary restrictions. So we were working with like a lot of things that we had to like okay, well, we're not going to go hiking and exploring too much because we don't want to be on our feet for too long because one of our friends is pregnant. And this one over here, like, we have to be very selective about where we go to eat because while the rest of us could probably eat there, she may not be able to. So we need to make sure that we have that accommodated for. And it was just like a really interesting like puzzle every day to like, what do we want to do? How can we do it? Let's research some options. Let's look it up.
Nice. So give us a couple of examples of the type of planning you would do considering the existing logistics.
Right. So I think the only thing that changed from like my routine of what I was doing, like I had talked about before, where I would like look up the day before, I want to go to here, and I would just kind of pick stuff along the way.
Yeah.
Since we only really stayed in 2 towns,
okay,
we would just say, okay, what are the key things we want to do during the day? And then we would look up like a handful of like options essentially to be like, okay, well, we could do this, could do this, could do this. And just depending on how the day felt.
Yeah.
We were like, all right, what's our list? Pick one of these things. All right, let's just go do that. Okay, cool. Let's grab a taxi and go over there and do that. Like one of the best examples was being in Edinburgh. And it was like, okay, we all know we want to try and see the Edinburgh Castle.
Yeah.
So we're like, all right, well, I mean, it's on the top of a hill, so it's going to be all uphill to get there. So already we're thinking of the pregnant woman like, okay, so we need to make sure that we have places that let's just all agree that we're not going to worry about stopping. We're not going to be on a time frame. We're not going to have time to get there or anything like that. Yeah. Let's also agree that we could do like trinket shopping along the way because 1, it gives us a break to stop walking, and 2, one of the other people in the group really loves like going to those like really crappy tourist shops and like finding like little things to kind of get because those are the mementos they collect or like those things in the shitty tourist.
A little statuette with a kilt.
I think the ones that this person gets are the fridge magnets.
Okay, yeah.
And so they get like fridge magnet, like the cheapo fridge magnets, but they get them for everywhere they go. So
my friend went to Edinburgh and bought me this shitty fridge magnet.
Kind of like that. But yeah, like the more kooky the magnet is, the more they're more likely to buy them.
Right.
But that was, so we just had like agreements on that. And then for food, like one of them has celiac disease. And so we have to be like, okay, so food places, we just have to make sure they have plenty of options for this person to eat.
So what do celiac disease people eat?
Not bread.
Okay.
Anything but gluten.
Gluten. Okay, got it. Got it.
That's the gluten deficiency one.
So you could like go on black mange all day and you'd be good.
On what?
You know what black mange is?
No.
The blood sausage at the Scots?
No, we couldn't actually because of some of the stuff they mix into it is gluten because of some of the grains and everything.
Right, okay.
So we actually looked that up. In fact, we actually went specifically to a place because so one thing, talking about food real quick, that I had when I was there, I think I did not go a single day in Scotland without having haggis of some sort.
You like haggis, huh?
I fucking love haggis. Haggis is my new comfort food.
Say it. We can bleep it. Say it again.
No. I love haggis. And I had it literally every day that I was there. If it wasn't haggis, it was blood sausage. So it was like I had one of those two literally every day that I was there. And it's just so good.
Yeah.
So good. It was just such this like wonderful comfort food. And it has an amazing taste. And I don't know why people rag on it so much, but I think it's just because like they think about what it's made out of and how it used to be prepared.
We'll have a jostle of sticks about blood sausage when we do the food episodes.
Probably.
Because there's also that.
But it's just the fact that
preferences with blood sausage.
That's true. But I think it's the fact that haggis was traditionally cooked inside of a sheep's bladder. And I think that put a lot of people off, you know?
That's just people overthinking it. It's like, you know, if you start overthinking stuff, you realize that cheese is rotten milk.
Also true, which you don't really get to...
If you start pushing stuff, you know, and if you think about it that way, you really don't get what it is.
Right.
The fermentation changes what something is. Let's talk about that with the food stuff, because I didn't want to derail you, because you have a beautiful journey to talk about. And I don't want to get into food, because if this guy and I get into food, you know, we'll be here all week.
We'll do another episode of that.
Sure.
At another point. But for this one, because of the way that the oats and the different grains that they put in with the haggis to like make it that, you know, that consistency that it is, it wasn't gluten-free.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, I love haggis. And I was talking about it. And so then the other members of the group were like, all right, we'll go out to this place and we're all going to get the haggis meals, but this person can't.
The blood sausage in Spain, the best one is made with rice. So it's also gluten-free.
Oh. Any of you celiac people out there,
Get off the food subject. Get off the food subject.
yeah, I don't know why you keep bringing up this blood sausage thing when I'm trying to tell a story.
Because I get the Spanish chip on my shoulder with.
Yeah, I know. You're very proud of
Our
it.
food is better. Yeah, so.
Very proud of the Spanish food.
Yep. Ask any Spaniard. I'm not the only
To be fair, it's very delicious. You know, and I had convinced every other person in this group to like, okay, you've convinced me, like, I'll look over it, I'll try it out. And so everyone had tried it except for this person in our group because she just couldn't. So what we wound up doing was we actually found, I think it was in Edinburgh, was a place that was just a haggis and whiskey bar. Mm-hmm. And that's it. It was haggis and scotch.
Holy shit. In Edinburgh?
In Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And it's just right off the Royal Mile. I don't remember what street it was on. I would tell you, so if you ever get to go there, you could go there. But just look for the haggis and whiskey bar. You can't miss it. I mean, it pops right up on a Google search. And it was amazing because they had a gluten-free haggis. And so she got there and was like, oh my God, I finally get to do it. I finally get to try haggis.
Can she have scotch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she can have scotch. Is gluten-free?
Huh?
Scotch is.
Yeah, because of the part of the fermentation process, it like strips it all out. Mm-hmm. That's a story for a different day.
Yeah.
But yes, so scotch is fine. And
also, remember to tell you the story about my two hick friends in the 80s who drove into the Highlands and went into a bar in the Highlands and ordered scotch on the rocks.
Ooh.
I think the birds stopped chirping. Anyway.
That kind of wraps up. But like that was an example of like some of the planning we'd have to do with the friends. And just like sometimes when it would like all mesh together and all work, like it was just a beautiful thing.
It sounds like an awesome trip.
It was great. But to your point, two people going into Scotland and ordering a scotch on the rocks, like that is...
I mean, well, these two guys... I'm
surprised they weren't murdered on the spot.
I think they drove in with an Opel Manta, too, that they got across the ferry to Great Britain. It was a disaster. These two guys were just... these two clowns were just something else. Seriously, I almost drew a comic strip about them because they were just...
that would be awesome.
You know, seriously, they walked into a Highland bar, which already in and of itself... The town they were in, everybody just stopped and looked at them, just stared at them when they walked in.
Yeah, sure.
You know, two idiots in their 20s with black leather jackets and like skinny black jeans in a Highland bar.
Yep.
Where the whiskey, not scotch, comes out from a tap and is served at room temperature. And you just walk in there, everybody stops talking, the birds stop chirping, and they just order for everybody to hear scotch on the rocks, and they just get stared down.
Well, there's a very good reason for that.
Yeah.
So I went to many distilleries while I was there.
Did you count them?
I think I went to 11 distilleries while I was there. Mm-hmm. It was amazing. It was a good trip, dude.
Sounds like it.
And the best part about like going to those different distilleries is that when you're getting like the bottles of scotch here, like they come in like the big bottles of scotch, right?
Yeah.
They had like these little piquito bottles that were like little teeny tiny that you could get, and it's like, I don't know, 5 or 6 drinks in them.
Yeah.
But I would get those little bottles and take it with me. So like in between places that had distilleries, like I would get to my little Airbnb or wherever I was staying, and I would like make sure I had my little bottle, and I would have like a little glass at night because I had like I did the tour, and so you got like the tasting glass that comes with it. So I just take one of the glasses that I had from one of the tours, and I would just every night have like a little dram of whiskey because I got like those little bottles to like carry me through to like the next distillery.
I'm kind of glad because I thought at first you were going to say that you would just drive around the country, you know, with your
hell no,
with your scotch.
If I had done that, there's a very real chance I would have gotten in big trouble because Scotland has an absolute zero tolerance policy when it comes to that. You can't even go out and have a beer with dinner and then drive home, even if you're perfectly fine. But if there's anything on you, like on your breath when you get pulled over, zero tolerance.
If memory serves, public transportation system is not that bad over there either, right?
It's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good for the most part.
Because when I went there, I didn't drive. I was 16. And I moved in public transport. So
yeah. The only problem that I would have had with public transit and the type of trip that I was doing and that like the rental car like afforded me was that some of these places I went to were very remote.
Yeah, the sightseeing doesn't work
Right.
for that.
So if I was only going to like some of the bigger villages and cities, that would have been fine. But because of some of the places I went to were like, it was a village like out on the coast that had maybe 30 people that lived there.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
That is beautiful.
I mean, it has been a long time since I've stayed in a place that was that silent at night. No people, no cars on roads nearby, nothing.
Yeah. How about the stars?
Stars were gorgeous when you could see them because there was a lot of clouds all of the time.
I forget because the reason I say that
Very
is
rainy.
in the other places where I've been that are similar that I could relate to when you said that one of the most silent places.
Yeah.
For example, the Balearic Islands.
Yeah.
The most famous one is Ibiza, but Ibiza is kind of a jet set happening rave place.
Yeah.
But the other islands around there are not like that. They're just like small little Mediterranean islands, beautiful.
Yeah.
And not only was it really silent, but when you looked up at the sky, because there's a lot less contamination and there's a lot less human lights, there's a lot less cities in the vicinities. It's in the middle of a Mediterranean.
Yep. There's no light pollution. Yeah.
You see like triple the number of stars that you would see normally.
Yep.
So it's just really amazing. It's like somebody sprinkled. I didn't think that existed because I'd never seen those many stars.
Really?
But there's parts of the world where you see a ton more stars than what you would. So and I remember because the first night I was drunk, so I just like kind of like passed out almost in the field on the hill, and then I just started looking at the sky. And I was like, but I forgot it's Scotland because when I was there in Scotland, there's only half an hour a day of sun, and it was at 7 a.m.
Okay, well, that must have been like more towards winter then.
No, that was August.
So I went in July.
Edinburgh.
I went in July, and it was sunny from 4:30 a.m. until about 10:30 p.m.
Wow. It was cloudy all month that I was there.
Oh, yeah. No. There was clouds all the time, but like that was the sun cycle. So like it was daytime.
Oh, I see.
From like 4:30 a.m.
Yeah.
all the way until 10:30 p.m. But I can understand like not having direct sunlight because it's just cloudy all the time. If it's not raining, it's cloudy. The worst thing weather-wise, and I'm just going to finish this up and I'll get back to my point that I was attempting to make with the whiskey thing. But with the weather, the worst thing that you can like experience there is what they call a soaking mist.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it's just foggy. But the fog is so dense, it coalesces on your skin like rain.
It's like you just came out of a swimming pool.
Yep. And unless you have a rain jacket on and like everything, you're just going to get soaked through completely.
And you're not going to feel it happening until it's too late, right?
Oh, yeah. It's just like, you're like, oh, it's just kind of foggy outside. And 10 minutes later, you're drenched. So unless you have like all the rain gear, the problem is that this happens when it gets really warm and it's also really humid. And so it's just really hot and uncomfortable in this rain jacket. And you're like, oh, I'm sweating on the inside and I want to take this off. But if I do, I'm going to get drenched and then I'll just be miserable the rest of the day.
Yeah.
That was just a really interesting dynamic with all of that.
Yeah.
The point I was trying to make with the whiskey, though, is that going to these distilleries, I did the tour at some of them. Some of them I didn't really need to because the biggest differences between distilleries were mostly the copper stills and the way that they had their big copper stills shaped.
Okay.
Because that would adjust not just like how long they spent on each of the processes, but the shape of the copper still and how long the alcohol actually stays in contact with the copper actually changes the chemistry and the taste of each one of them too.
Wow.
So that's why like all these scotches and everything, it's not just like the time spent in things or like the aging or the barreling. Like it's also like just being in contact with copper for a certain period of time can change the chemical taste of it. But when I went on these tours, first one I remember very clearly, guy looks me dead in the eye because I was the only American there. And he says, anyone who puts scotch over ice is destroying a beautiful liquid that has spent 18 years or longer to get into your mouth. You're killing it. You're destroying it. All that work, gone. All the finessing, the fine-tuning, the work, the dedication, people's blood, sweat, and tears, just destroyed.
Yeah.
Because you completely change the chemical balance of the liquid.
Yeah, because you added water to it.
Well, he said that if you're going to add water to it, you literally only need 2 drops of tap water. He was specific about tap.
Because temperature, or just...
No. Because tap water still has like some minerals and stuff in it. And so that'll change the taste versus distilled water, which is like it's the same flavor profile. You're just putting liquid in. So you have to use tap water if you want to like add anything to it. And literally only 2 drops of water.
Also depends what type of tap water, because I wouldn't put tap water from Michigan, for instance.
Well, I guess that's true. But his example there, because it's Scotland, he was like, if you're going to do it with tap water here. And it's literally like, boop,
that's interesting.
2 drops.
Yeah.
And that's all you need.
And that's an if.
That's if you want to add water.
Because you should really drink it at room temperature.
Oh, no. It should, like the water should also be at room temperature.
No, I mean the whiskey.
Yeah.
The whiskey has to be room temperature. So I used to drink, I am a culprit. I used to drink scotch on the rocks for years.
Yeah.
And then I started drinking it
properly.
In thimbles, you know, and at room temperature, or in, what did you call it? Did you say dram? What is a dram?
So a dram is just like a measurement, or it's less than a shot, because a shot is like what you would call like a 2-finger pour.
Okay.
Essentially. But a dram is like, it's a single, like, when you think of a 1-finger pour, like that's the how much you're missing out of the bottle is like how much the width of a finger.
That's fascinating. I did not know that.
Yeah,
thank you. That's fascinating.
And so that's considered like 1 pour of whiskey.
Okay.
So like a shot, when you get a shot of whiskey here in America or in the United States, I should say,
we're gonna have a caption every time we say that.
When you get a shot in the United States, that's like 3 drinks of whiskey. In Scotland.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because, like, it's a
How much did it cost?
It was like...
A shot.
A full shot? So 3 drinks of whiskey?
No, a Scottish shot.
If you go to 1 drink of whiskey would be... I think it was like 12 pounds. So that was like...
It's like $15, $17 maybe?
Like $15. Yeah.
Probably 16, 17. Yeah, okay. And that is... 2 fingers?
That's a finger.
That is a dram.
And you're supposed to just sip that over a long period
12
of time.
Pounds.
Yep. Because you're supposed to just savor, sip, and enjoy it.
That is heavy.
Mm-hmm.
What about one of those bottles?
The bottle was like 30 pounds.
Okay.
Like the small bottles were like 30 pounds.
And those are 5 drinks?
5 or 6 drinks.
Okay. Hey, can we have a shot right now?
Actually, we could.
I'm not kidding at all. Do you guys mind if we have a shot? I think we should have a shot in common.
This is not whiskey, but I got this in Germany. This is grappa.
Oh, grappa from Italy. Oh, no, but this one we need to stuff.
This is not Italy, it's from Germany.
Grappa is originally from Italy.
I know, but I got this one in Germany.
But if we're going to drink this, we should put like stuffing in our thing and play The Godfather.
No. But it was about this size bottle.
Okay.
And this was about 30 pounds.
Nice. It has little peppers in it.
Because it's peperoncini.
Peperoncini grappa. And that's from Germany? Peperoncini too?
Yeah.
Dude, shut up. Do you have Scotch stuff, though, that we could sample? Because that would be beautiful.
Oh, no. I got this in Italy. Never mind.
Right. Peperoncini in Germany. That's like the German part of Milan.
Well, no, because I got it from a place in Germany that was like a exotic liquor store. And they had other stuff.
Right.
But yeah, so we can actually have...
Why don't we sample one in the thimble while we keep doing the Scottish thing? I think we should do it.
Okay.
We're going to drink some Scotch. Motherfuckers.
For everyone's edification, this is from the Talisker Distillery, which is actually a distillery in or on the Isle of Skye. Now, I got this bottle while I was there. It's not a super expensive bottle. It's not like one of their super limited edition ones, but I did get this one while I was there. So this is from Scotland, which means it's going to have a different flavor profile than even if we got a Talisker from America, like at the liquor store down the street.
And I see it's a malt. It's not a blend.
Correct.
Good. Single malt, I should say.
So the way that I was taught to do this was that if we're doing like a pour, it would be about that much.
Okay. That sound is awesome. I love that the mic is picking it up. Nice.
So we'll set that there. Now what we should do is kind of swirl this around.
Okay.
And we'll give this a little taste. So this is the way I was taught to do it. No, I'm not trying to be pretentious. I'm just sharing my knowledge with you.
No, you're right. You could.
Don't even worry about it.
You think this is pretentious? Fuck you. Sorry.
So get a little sniff of this, and then
Okay.
cilantro.
Some that.
So you get kind of the flavor of that.
Yeah.
Very
It's
smooth.
very nice. I like single malt. I don't know if you remember. I used to like that.
Yeah. But you'll also notice, like...
It's speedy, too.
Yeah, exactly. So one big difference about like scotch here versus scotch that you can get there, even versus scotch you can get in Japan, is because even though first of all, if it's labeled scotch, it had to have been bottled in Scotland. Pure, like just plain and simple. But they have different flavor profiles depending on where it's being sent. So people in the US and everything, we have apparently more appreciation of like darker bourbon, smoky flavors. So they'll go like extra heavy on peat, extra heavy on like bourbon flavors, more of that caramel flavor. And it'll be a lot more, it won't be as sweet.
It smells like aftershave. I thought it was sweeter, actually. I thought
No. It's not sweeter here. In Europe and Scotland and everywhere, people there, their flavor profiles, their palates tend to be like the blend. So they like the more 50-50 stuff. So it's a little bit more of the bourbon and a little bit more of the sherry flavors. Whereas the sherry flavor, tends to be associated with the sweetness. So that's like more of the plum and the fig and all that stuff. And that's more of the eastern side of the world. And that's where those flavors are really appreciated. So they have, in a big batch, they'll choose barrels to send off to different countries depending on where it is because of different flavor profiles that they've done the research for over years and years and years.
I mean, you can get stuff like Lafroy here.
Well,
It has that peaty.
yes, it'll still be. So you can. My point is that unless you get the bottle there, it'll have a different flavor profile being from here. So even if we got an exact same bottle of this here, there will be differences in flavors that you could taste. Because it's just not shipped here. So unless you have it imported directly from there, it would be a different flavor profile. Now, for adding water, the way that I was taught to do this, they gave us a little water thing like this, and I'm like, oh, are we supposed to just pour what we want in? No. Don't do that. You might get stabbed. I'm just saying, you might get stabbed. The way that I was taught to do this is that you take a glass like this, pour the water out completely, and what you're left over with is just enough to do 2 drops.
Love the little ritual part of it.
And that's all you need. And if you mix that up and have a different taste now, you should, in theory, notice different flavors.
I don't know if now I'm suggested by what you said, but I would have sworn that this was a different.
Yeah. So what happens is that the water, even just 2 drops, changes the chemical composition enough to let it open up a little bit.
Yeah.
And it releases a few more of those flavors. So like for me, this kind of lost that harshness of the peat smoke.
Yep.
And now it gets a little sweeter.
But it also kind of widened, like almost literally. Like I felt it widen more through my palate, through my throat. And the other thing it wasn't. And I might be, like I said, like now hyper self-suggested with the story, but stories do make things taste different.
That's also true.
So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Today
and now we get to enjoy this for the rest of this
recording. How did you
recording.
pronounce that in Gaelic? Teach me how to do that, because I think
Sláinte?
Sláinte?
Yeah.
Sláinte, motherfucker.
Which means good health.
Yeah, in Gaelic. I just try to say it as I read it, which of course is not how you pronounce it.
And I'm sure I'm probably butchering it too. But
no, at least you've heard it. I've never heard it said out loud. And if I have, when I was in Scotland, I was too young and too drunk to record it.
Fair enough.
So let's keep going. This is a fascinating story.
Yes. Let's talk about... so the next thing I want to talk to you about... I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, kind of skip around. There's a couple things I want to talk about. And I want to talk about Loch Ness.
Oh, nice.
And the whole, the mythos and the legacy behind Loch Ness. When I went to Scotland, you have to understand. I was like, I don't know the next time I'm coming back. I don't. I know that I could come here at any point, but I don't know when that's going to be. So I want to make sure that Loch Ness was a place that I was going to visit. Well, that was a really interesting thing. So I will say that the road coming from, I think I came from Isle of Skye over to Loch Ness, and there is a road that just hugs this sheer cliff that goes around the loch for most of the way there. Mm. It is one of the most fun, gorgeous drives I've done the entire time I was in Scotland.
No white knuckles.
There was white knuckles the first time.
Okay.
Because the first time I was terrified. It's like hugging the edge of this.
Scary.
It's hugging the edge of this cliff. Yeah. There's people like zooming past you. I mean, there were like buses going around me at certain times, and I was terrified. That was just the first time I did it, though. I actually did Loch Ness twice. Because the first time I went there, a thunderstorm moved in, and it would just poured rain to the point where I couldn't even be outside.
This was on the first trip, not this one. Or is this on this trip?
It was on this trip. So I went to Loch Ness twice during this trip.
Oh, got it. Okay.
But the first time I drove through there, it was just downpour. The worst downpour I had the entire time I was there. You may not know me, but I had to go to Loch Ness because I have been infatuated with that myth, that legend for decades now. Ever since I learned what the Loch Ness Monster was. So I had to go there. I had to see what was up. So the road going up there, up to this little town that was like the Loch Ness town to go to. It had like all the Loch Ness Monster stuff associated with it. It also has a castle right nearby too. It's one of like the top castles to go see in Scotland. Mm-hmm. But this road is on a sheer cliff, and it's just 2 lanes. And you're trying to drive like 60 miles an hour along tight turns around this sheer cliff.
Why?
Because that's the speed limit.
The fuck?
I didn't make it up, but it was terrifying the first time. And then driving this little Volkswagen Golf that I had there, after I got used to it, it just became fun. Mm. Because then it was like a fun road, especially if you're going up the side of it where you're hugging against the wall. You feel a little more protected because you're like, the worst that's going to happen is like kind of like bounce off the wall a little bit.
Yeah.
Versus the other side where you're like, the worst that happens is I drive off into the loch. So it's like a
into the
40-foot. It's like a 100-foot drop into the water. And the water, the angle of the water there is so steep that 10 feet off the shore, and we actually measured this with a depth guide on a boat while I was there.
Okay.
10 feet off the shore, it's already 100 feet deep.
Holy shit. Well, that's good. If you accidentally fall there with a car, you got a nice drop.
You have you have a chance of probably surviving the impact of the water, but you got to get out of that car quick, otherwise you're not coming up to the surface.
Okay.
It's not like you're going to wait for the car to hit the bottom and then you're going to try and open the door and get up.
End up like meeting the monster.
Yeah, pretty much.
Nice. Cool. So that's scary.
It was terrifying, but it was also very fun. I will say, though, the most disappointing thing about going to Loch Ness was learning that the Scottish Board of Tourism is trying to shut down the myth of Loch Ness.
Okay, why is that?
So, like, the Scottish Board of Tourism?
Yeah, well, why are they trying to do that?
I didn't get an exact answer from any of the locals.
You would think that maybe they've been milking that for like centuries.
Or they would want to keep, because it's like, it's a thing. Like, people come to like, try and see the Loch Ness. I didn't get an exact answer as to why they were trying to shut it down. All I know is that I went to this town that is like the place to go for Loch Ness stuff. Like, it had the Loch Ness Monster Museum. It was supposed to have like house all the research and everything that they've done. It also had like a mini golf course and like all the touristy stuff. Like it had the Loch Ness Hotel, and like supposedly all the researchers, like they'll come and stay in that hotel because it's the Loch Ness Hotel. And that in itself was a little touristy because like the restaurant attached to it is like designed on the outside to look like a castle and everything. And, it's gimmicky, but I definitely wanted to like go to that town and check it out. So I wound up staying in an Airbnb in that town, and it's pretty small. So like where I was, I could just walk the entire length of the town in about, 15, 20 minutes. And that was about it. It was very small. But when I got there, I was very surprised to see that they had actually shut down the museum, like the big Loch Ness museum that had like one of the original submarines that they actually used to like dive into the water that was on loan from the U.S. actually. They have it on display there, but like all of the research, all the more serious stuff, like they had just shut it down. And there wasn't an explanation that I got. It wasn't like, oh, they're doing renovations.
How recent is this policy, do you know?
They shut it down. So I got there in July of 2019. And what I was told is that they had shut it down like 4 months prior.
So I would look into the coincidence of any changes in administration or any political.
I could. I didn't.
No, what I'm saying is, if we were to be interested in that further, that's kind of how we would look into it. I'm just responding to the fact that you're saying that it's a mystery why they're doing it.
Right. Well, and that was because, like, even the locals who I thought would have had, like, a little better explanation, especially because there was another Loch Ness tourist, like, hobby shop, collectible shop, and they had, like, a little attraction in the back where it was, like, a light show, essentially. So it's, like, it's a pre-built, like, almost Disneyland-esque path where they have, and I have you guys are seeing it now on the screen, but I actually have a picture of it, and there's like, a built-up, like, papier-mâché, if I'm going to use the British way of saying it. Papier-mâché.
That's French.
Is it?
It's French. Yeah.
Well, I've only heard British people pronounce it that way.
Right. Because they're trying to pronounce French. It means mashed paper.
Right.
Literally.
Well, if I was going to say...
In French.
If I was going to say it like a U.S. citizen, I would just say it was papier-mâché.
Right. But look at the spelling.
Yeah, I know. We can get into that another time. But the point is like it's done up like this like Disneyland attraction, and you're supposed to go through there, and there's like an audio track that plays of like pre-recorded people like pretending to be historical figures, like, you know, when I went down and actually tried to see the Loch Ness monster and blah blah blah, and you just kind of like listen to it as you walk through this experience, and then there's a little video at the end of it that kind of like distills the history of the Loch Ness monster into like 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And, like, that was cute. That was fun. And I was like, well, what about the actual, like, main museum, like, a block up? Why is that closed? And they were like, oh, that closed, like, a couple months ago. And all we've heard from the Scottish Board of Tourism is that that's just not something they're going to be supporting anymore.
There's an agenda behind that, for sure.
Oh, for sure.
For sure.
But it kind of took me off guard. I was like, man, all I've wanted to do, like, with the Loch Ness is, like, go to the Loch Ness Museum and immerse myself for, like, a day in all of the cheesy stuff. Like, I wanted to do the mini golf course. They had shut that down. I wanted to go... I did eat at the Loch Ness Hotel restaurant for dinner. And I did check out the other, like, tourist shop. But, like... Oh, and I also took a boat cruise that was scanning for Loch Ness. So one of the things that happened there was, like, during the big movement, like when it first became real, like everyone was like, oh, the Loch Ness, like we have to go look for it. And they were really trying to milk that. It was actually a government-backed scientific research project to hire a fleet of ships and equip them with the latest technology at that time of like depth scanning sonars and radars to like just put them all on a line and send them the entire way up the loch in a big line. And just try and scan everything and see where we could try and find something. And after a while, you know, that those ships got expensive to keep maintaining. So what they wound up doing, the researchers, was they took those ships in order for them to keep doing their scanning to this day and just keep doing it, was they turned it into a tourist attraction. So now you can rent out that ship for like, you know, an hour of, you go around this point, you go around like the little like jut out that has the castle on it, and you get to go see the castle from the backside and see it from the water point of view. But they're also doing it so they can actually continue their research.
That's really smart. That is really smart. I admire resourcefulness.
Right. So like all of the people running these boat tours, like they're legitimate researchers who like they just do their spiel about Loch Ness and
but that's a really nice symbiosis. You know, I mean, the people that are interested in visiting and doing tourism are financing the research that digs up even more information on that very thing that those people are interested in. So that's a really smart entrepreneurial. How do you pronounce that?
Entrepreneurial
initiative. I don't know. I don't speak English. So that's great. That's awesome. It sounds very fishy, the whole locking down the loch.
I agree. I don't know, like the mythos around the monster. is really the part that they're trying to shut down. Like, obviously, Loch Ness it has a lot more historic value than that for like old trading purposes and like who used to own the castle and the reasons for owning the castle and why it was a strategic point to do that. There's all of that history still, but the Loch Ness monster part specifically is what they're like, let's just slowly kind of put this off on a shelf in the corner and just kind of forget about that thing. That was what I got from the people that worked there, from the locals.
If I were a more jaded, suspicious person, I would venture that somebody's bought the rights or somebody is in the process of trying to own the rights
for like
of said myth.
Maybe.
But I mean, I'm not that jaded.
I'm not saying that's what it is.
That's what I would say. But I'm not. So
anyway,
cool. So,
that definitely kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah,
for sure.
Oh, I bet it did. It's I'm still recovering.
I will say one more. Just the last thing I want to say about the Loch Ness thing. When I was actually taking that boat tour, there was one little factoid that really just got drilled in my brain, and that's because recently I just got done watching the HBO series of Chernobyl. And it's like the dramatization of what happened with the Chernobyl explosion and all that stuff. It's a really fantastic piece of television. Really well-told story, I think. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but I know that they went through great lengths to make it at least historically accurate as far as they could. But anyway, one thing that was really interesting that stuck out to me because I had just watched that was that in areas of Loch Ness, in deeper parts of it, in the sediment, there is still active radioactive material from the fallout of Chernobyl. That is just that happened when it started after it exploded and the clouds were going all over Europe. That fallout from that is still active and embedded in parts of the sediment in Loch Ness.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh,
that's really scary.
That's terrifying to know that there are radioactive parts deep in the loch.
I just wonder how much we don't know.
About what?
About the type of environmental disaster that we've triggered over the past century.
Oh, a ton probably. But it was just interesting to hear that, like, oh yeah, we definitely have scans confirming there are radioactive portions from the Chernobyl disaster still in the loch to this day. Like, we can't actually dive down in these parts because it's still radioactive enough. Yeah. And that was just from the rainfall.
Wow.
So that was an interesting thing. Another thing that I really loved about Scotland, and I'm sure everyone who is native to Scotland is just so tired of this thing, but it's the castles.
Oh man, they're beautiful. I just saw a couple.
They're so gorgeous, and it's just such a broad range from like completely decimated, nothing left but a few stones in the grounds where you're like, I'm pretty sure this is where the castle was, where these like you can tell these were a couple bricks. Yeah. And they're in a rough outline of this shape to castles that are still standing, well manicured, still lived in. Mm-hmm. And like just the spectrum to go from that.
We show some of those in the trailer, don't we?
We do, actually. There's a couple of, for you keen-eyed viewers, there's a couple of those in the spin section. That was from my trip. And there's some of those castles in those things. One of my favorite castles that I went to, so this was a portion of my trip later where my mother had actually come to visit and meet up with me for the last couple days of my trip too, because it was my birthday and it was my mother wanted to be part of my birthday and big 30 and everything. She was like, well, I want to be a part of it. So I was like, fine, meet up with me then. So she did. And the first night that she got there, she was tired and exhausted, but she got in so early in the day, I was like, okay, but I need to keep you up at least until like 10 p.m. so that you can reset your clock. So what are we going to do? It's like 6 o'clock, but I didn't know that Scotland, like St. Paul, everything closes at like 8 or like between 6 and 8 because people are like, dude, this is my job and I want to get the hell out of here. Mm-hmm. I was like, I get it. But for somebody traveling here, like, it just kind of sucks.
What about the pubs though?
The pubs were the only things that were really open. Pubs and restaurants.
But you said
anything else?
when in Rome.
Well, I wanted to do other stuff, and so did she.
Right.
She was like, I don't really want to go out and do a bunch of drinks. And I was like, I get it. Me too. So what I did was I wound up doing the thing where I just look up and see what's around the area. And I found out there was a castle. I was like, okay, well, does this one have a restriction? Because some castles, like, they're manned by people. Even if they're ruins, it's like there's somebody on the premises at all times, kind of like keeping an eye on things.
Right. Makes sense.
But this one was actually one of the ruins that nobody gave a shit about anymore. So it's like, what are the hours on it? 24/7. If you feel like walking out there, just fucking walk out there.
Nice.
I was like, okay, that's really cool. So we went out and did that. It turns out the castle that we just randomly wound up picking, just from I looked on a map and I was like, there's a castle. Oh, it's open 24/7. Let's just go to that. It's about an hour away. Sure. So we did that. And it turns out this castle was the inspiration to Bram Stoker for Dracula's castle.
Oh, nice.
So, like, he had come here and seen this and seen how
I
much
thought it was in Romania. Oh, no, that's just
that's where the mythos is.
Right. So, well, he existed, Vlad the Impaler.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, that whole story
Of the order,
and everything.
the
like,
Order of the Dragon, Dracula,
Yeah,
Dragon.
yeah.
Okay.
So that was there, but the way that he thought about, like, when he was trying to think of, like, what does the castle even look like, he was in Scotland traveling, and he traveled to this location and saw this ruin and what was left over. And, like, I'll put some pictures up on the screen now of some of those things, but, like, the way that there's these multi-tiered arches and the fact that there's this underground cellar still that's still a burial crypt, and it still has, like, the cutouts for where they put the bodies and all that stuff.
Those are the niches.
Yeah. And it still had all of that there, which was terrifying because there's obviously no light there. So I'm trying to, like, use the little light on my phone, and I'm like, I can't really see anything.
Like,
you can walk around anything.
Nice.
There is a 5-story tower that's still standing that you can climb to the top of, like the spiral staircase all the way up.
How many?
No railings, no anything. Like, if you fall off of this and die, you're just an idiot.
How many films do you think have been shot in that location?
I have no idea, but it's something that I haven't looked it up yet, but I just know that was the inspiration for when he went there to write Dracula.
Yeah.
Like, he saw this and he's like, this is what I think of when I think castle, like hidden passageways and the underground cellar. And
what is this castle called?
Yeah, I don't remember right now, but it's on the screen now. Check it out. This was the name of the castle. Ding! Little things like that were just really cool to, like, suddenly go to, like, one of these castle locations and it's just like, oh, I didn't even know. Like, I did it by accident. And look at this.
Yeah, those are beautiful happenstances on
The other big castle that I really wanted to go to. So the whole reason, I'm going to try and summarize this as best I can. The whole reason for me even going to Scotland for my 30th birthday is because my, like, centuries ago heritage was from Scotland.
Oh, that's right.
Because my last name happens to be Dickson, and it's spelled Dickson. The reason that spelling specifically is important is because that's the first recorded time that you would ever see in any side of Dickson's, any kind of them, Dix or anything. The correct way, the original way, Thomas Dickson is Dickson, and is recorded by a letter from Robert the Bruce saying that due to Thomas Dickson's glory on the battlefield that he had been granted land because of this. Mm-hmm. And that was the first time it had ever been recorded. So because Thomas Dickson was fighting with Robert the Bruce and had glory in battle with that, he was granted land, and this was documented on paper. And that was the first time the Dickson name had ever come up.
Okay.
And it was later found out that he was the son of this guy who was the head of Clan Keith. So all Dicksons are now grandfathered into the tartan of Clan Keith.
Got it.
Because they're all considered to be part of Clan Keith. Later on, I think it was just before the Battle of Culloden, the Dickson family name had become its own sort of clan.
Which one is the Battle of Culloden? Is it that when the Scots finally managed to get the English to butt out?
No, it was when the English came back and actually shut it all down. So Battle of Culloden lasted less than an hour.
Okay.
And it was one of the final pushes of all the clans together to try and get rid of the English, and this happened more in the Highlands. Mm-hmm. So not all of the clans, but a good representation of clans were there. And the British wound up winning because the battlefield was so boggy that half of the Scottish army couldn't actually make it up to the front line to fight. And because the British were so well prepared and had all of their rifles ready to go, they basically just encircled the half that did get there, shot them all down, and the other half that were stuck in the bog trying to make it there went, okay, well, we see how the tide has turned. We need to get out of here. So they were trying to flee and then being shot down as they're trying to escape. The whole battle lasted less than an hour.
Holy cow.
And after that, since the British had won, British rule started to become more and more of a thing there. So they started to shut down any sort of wearing of kilts, any sort of talking in Gaelic, like really stripping down any of the practices that they had and just trying to make them more proper British citizens. And essentially that was the death of clans in Scotland was that point, was this Battle of Culloden.
Okay, cool. Because I had just heard the story of the spider of Robert the Bruce.
What?
You don't know the story of the spider?
No, what's the story?
So
wait, like a spider?
Yeah, spider. So there's a very famous story, and it's a myth. So I don't know if it's how real it is. I know it's a myth, and they tell everybody in British school. So I went to King's College as a kid, by the way, for a few years, and it's a story about Robert the Bruce in hiding after I don't know, the 6th time that he's been defeated in battle.
Yeah. And
they've killed a bunch of his siblings. So I don't know if they've killed all of his brothers and one of his sisters is a prisoner or something like that.
Really? Okay.
And, and his army has been decimated. They're all in fucking hiding. And he's in a cave and he's just demoralized, super demoralized. And he's watching a spider that is trying to weave a web on the ceiling of the cave, and just keeps falling and just climbs up and keeps trying to do the web, and he finds himself rooting for the spider.
Really?
Is it rooting or routing? Rooting.
It's rooting, yeah.
Rooting for the spider.
Like rah.
And then as he gets tangled in watching the spider, it just dawns on him that I got to give it another shot like the spider is doing. So, I don't know if the spider...
So he realizes it's some sort of metaphor for his situation.
Yeah, so he's watching the spider go at it and then fall, and have to climb all the way up again and start to throw a thread. And at the end, he's just he's forgotten about all his woes and he's just go spider, something like that. And then he just stops himself and he goes shit, I should do this too,
Right.
And what I thought, and this is why your story surprised me, but then I guess it's true because I remember from reading Robert Louis Stevenson that the English had stuck their foot on Scotland's throat. So
yep.
Definitely. But what happened after that is he actually raised an army and went out to battle the English again. So I had the story mixed up in my head that he had somehow prevailed in the end. But obviously, now that I think about it harder, I realize that he didn't because Scotland became dominated by the English.
Yes.
And there's that story from Robert Louis Stevenson too in Kidnapped where the kid is hiding. He's a Scottish kid and he's hiding and he hears 2 red jackets.
Oh,
I don't know if they're red jackets or they're soldiers. And he goes I heard the King's English for the first time and they don't know how to speak English either. Because they say "Allo Ari," So they pronounce. So anyway, so I just remembered that. So there's the spider story of Robert the Bruce is
that's awesome.
Very well known among school kids.
But yeah, so that was the whole reason I even took this trip was because of that family lineage of going back to Clan Keith.
And did you go with your mom, right?
My mom was there at a certain point, yeah. And we went to the castle and everything.
So the castle of your ancestors?
Yep, the castle of my ancestors.
And how was that? That must have been...
That was awesome. It was very surreal to be there.
Okay.
My mom joked many times, actually. She was like, well, look, you're finally home. You've come all the way back. No, it was just really interesting to kind of see that and see the history, see this landscape and this architecture that's still standing there.
Because of course your mother's not a Dickson, right? So she's kind of with you for the ride.
But she also has roots in Scotland through her family history from a different name that actually also came out of Clan Keith.
Oh, wow. So you come from an incestuous relationship?
In a roundabout way, yeah. But it came from 2 separate...
roundabout way.
like centuries later. But yeah, both of the families came out of the same clan Keith, split off, diverged however many times.
And then converged right back in Bert here.
Ta-da! Amalgamation. But yeah, so that was the whole purpose of taking this trip. And I just think that was an amazing trip altogether.
Cool.
Anyway.
It sounds like an awesome trip because you did all these different, it kind of has different facets, right? So you have the friend reunion and the friend bonding thing. You have your mom bonding thing.
Yeah.
You have your alone.
I had my Zen time.
Yeah.
And to bring it all back to the connection to this like deep-seated family thing. Like, it was really awesome.
You got the drunk time too.
There were times.
There had to be. Cool.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. I was really appreciative being able to just kind of tell this story in this format. I actually have a lot more that I could talk about, so maybe we'll revisit this at another point in time.
Maybe we should, yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot more history that we could tie to it as well. But again, thank you guys for listening, and until next time.
Stay out of prison.
And walk in the shade.